I'm just getting the live stream going. I think Mariana, did I do that right? Give me
I'm
one.
checking right now.
It says paused. Oh, it's getting ready. We're good. Okay. Anyway, let's join together in our blessing. And then I've got a question for you before we turn to the Torah portion, as always. Baruch atah Adonai
Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam
Haolam,
asher
Asher
shana
Kitanu,
Shana
mitzvotav
b'mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
v'tzivanu
la'asot
La'asot
l'chatut
b'divrei
divrei
Torah.
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 I love that cacophony. That is beautiful. Um, and actually ties into my question before we start. Hi, Mona. Before we start looking at text itself, I learned many years ago that the best thing about working with adults and studying with adults is this Torah that you all have. Hi, Anne. But before we do it, Mariana, are we set?
Good.
Okay, good. Okay. So here's the thing. We just heard a cacophony, but we know it's actually I'm at one of our other campuses today because this is the culmination of our faculty in service week. So we have 150, I don't know how many teachers we have in this building today. And we've been talking a lot about learning. And we all know that people learn in different ways. So I love the cacophony of saying that blessing on Zoom, and some of you are muted and some of you are not, and the little green box hops all over the place. I have no doubt it probably drives many of you crazy. This is the way it is. It's okay. But so some of us learn through hearing, some of us learn through seeing. And our Torah portion this week is called Re'eh, which means seeing. It comes from the word lirot, to see. So here's my question to all of you. Whether you think of yourself as a visual learner or not, we all live in this world. When you look out into the world today, when you look around you right now, what is it that you see? Who wants to share? What do you see when you look at the world around us?
A mess.
Good. Rebecca, how about you?
A lot of busyness. I was on the bus this morning, and so there's traffic and people and just a lot of busyness.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way this week in particular, but always, yeah, for sure. Douglas.
Chaos.
I'm sensing a theme here. Okay.
You don't want to listen?
No.
A lot of unhappiness,
Yes.
insecurities.
Great. It's so interesting. I'm taking these all in. This is great. Panina, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to always look at the root, and it means look, like when you say to somebody, look out.
So what do you see when you look at
I see, and also the word mora with an aleph in the end, not hey. It means to have respect for something, to fear something out of respect. So mora with an aleph in the end, not hey. Hey is a teacher, more. I'm trying to figure out if the word roe or rao is like pay attention. Pay attention and respect what you see. In other words, don't take it for granted that whatever you see is that what you think what it is. Pay more attention.
So yes, and I love that kind of fuzzy line in the Hebrew because we also have it when we talk about hearing in Torah, that it is right, that it's also this line between
fear
the physical act and also paying attention. But my question is, What do you all see when you look at the world around us? Yes. Oh, I love that you changed your screen name. Perfect. Thank you. Elaine.
Listening. I'm usually listening in the background, but I had to speak up this time and say I see greed and intolerance. It abounds. It just
Ooh,
abounds.
ooh.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is fabulous in a not fabulous kind of way.
I know.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. Anyone else? Mona, did you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with unhappiness. So wonderful. Oh, and Benjamin, go Wildcats. But change.
Oh.
Okay. And I'm wrestling with how we can make change good and not all bad.
Hmm.
But what we are seeing is all change. Everything's changing. Things we thought would never change are changing.
It all depends what follow.
Interesting. So this is what I'm fascinated and not surprised by these answers, but fascinated. With the possible exception of your response, Rebecca, when you said the chaos and the buses, I don't know if anybody else noticed that all of your answers were not actual physical things.
Right.
They're all things that we perceive. The buses notwithstanding, but even just the busyness, we feel it, right? And yet somehow we know it's there. So here's my second question, and then I promise we're going to look at the Torah portion. What do you not see when you look around?
The idea of a God, because you cannot see him.
Okay.
You,
Ben, go
you
ahead.
can't you
You were
can't
leaning in.
you can't see love or hate or acceptance or rejection. Those
Mm.
things are not visible.
Wonderful. Merle, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not seeing people just living their lives and not stopping for whatever their fears are. If that makes sense.
Say a little bit more.
I'm just living my life, whatever, and and the girls are living their lives, and I'm not walking around paranoid.
Hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever happens is going to happen. And I just do whatever it is I'm supposed to do.
Just go about it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Douglas.
It's more like paying attention
Oh,
carefully.
yeah. Interesting. Well, we'll come back to that in a minute, Panina. Douglas, go ahead.
On the macrocosm, it's everything that we've said. But on the microcosm, I see individuals not being greedy, helping, being helpful, smiling. So it's both.
There's a lot of perspective that there's a lot of room for interpretation in everything that we're seeing, even in your house, right? Great. Brad, go ahead.
Rabbi, I'm on my bike and I was in my zone. And it wasn't until you asked the question that I looked around and I saw this beautiful blue sky that's out here, these fabulous trees that line the streets of Santa Monica, all this natural beauty that so often we're closed to, even though we're surrounded by it. We become, I don't know, we become immune, we become insensitive. I'm not sure what the word is, but it wasn't until you asked the question that I really started looking around me at my environment.
Well, I'm glad I asked. And I think even though we're actually going to look at a different part of our Torah portion, I think I wanted to start with that question because it's the name of the Torah portion. But it is exactly what you're saying. Regardless of what we're talking about, there's what we pay attention to and what we notice, and then there's what we don't. Merle, go ahead.
It kind of goes along with what Brad just said. If we are going somewhere, if I'm driving, I don't necessarily pay attention to what's going on around me. But if Arnie or one of the kids or a friend is driving, I pay more attention to what's going on around me. And most of that is really good when you think about it.
Right. There's a lot of beauty out there, and there's a lot of pain out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope when you're driving, you are paying attention. But I know you well enough to know that you actually are.
I,
And go
I,
ahead.
I do.
Different kind of paying attention, right? And maybe that's a lesson. We notice different things depending on what seat we're in, literally and metaphorically. Anne, go ahead.
Oh, it's not. I mean, your first question was trees, and your second question is the lack of trees. It depends what neighborhood you're in. It depends on what kind of transportation you take. You know, if you're really out there walking around and looking, or have lived in cities where you're on public transportation, I think it's a more, what were you saying, that your comment about the comments was that these weren't tangible things that people were
Not
commenting
necessarily
on?
physical things.
Physical things, yeah. And I was really geared towards the physical because it may just have to be with how you get around
Interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
in the world.
Well,
I mean, people don't notice all the hacked trees. I'm really into tree policy. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is it would be such an improvement.
if we had more.
Oh, even around our Wilshire campus.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
For sure. So I think this is a challenge given to us by our Torah portion this week. And the beginning of the Torah portion isn't actually what we're going to look at, but I just want to put it in context for everybody. And then with that, we're going to hop forward to the middle of the Torah portion. But it starts, here's how it starts. I'm just going to read it to you. See, re'eh. I set before you, see this day, I, God, is speaking, set before you blessing and curse, right? That's the first verse. I set before you blessing and curse. It's a choice. It's all out there. Then what do we see? Let's take a look. God is setting it all out there for us. Now we're going to look to the middle of the Torah portion, but actually one more thing before that, and then I will share my screen. I had the opportunity earlier this week, and I don't know if any of you were at Resnick on Wednesday night, but there was a program with two co-authors. I was with them earlier that day, which was actually why they were in town. Two people who wrote a book together. The book is called It Takes Two to Torah. It's an Orthodox rabbi and a Reform journalist who went through the Torah and they actually did a podcast for a number of years where they debated or discussed the Torah portion each week, and they turned that into a book. Okay. So they're really phenomenal, very different perspectives, because this comes back to the question of perspectives. They're different human beings and they approach the world with a different lens just by virtue of who they are, just like all of us do. And so we're going to start with a little quote from one of the authors, and then we're going to look at the Torah portion. So here we are. So this is what Abigail Pograbin says. She says, the name of the Parsha is See, and that feels like so much of what all of us are reckoning with right now when it comes to who is still struggling or being shortchanged in this country. You need to open your eyes. You need to open your eyes to what you have not seen or refused to see or neglected to see. That's her take on what the Torah portion, or at least some aspect of the Torah portion, is offering, and in particular on these verses that we're about to see, because these verses are, one verse in particular we're going to look at is the foundation for the whole entity of Jewish law interfaces or faces the issue of tzedakah and giving tzedakah. So here we are. Couple verses into the chapters into the Torah portion. It says, And remember, we're in Deuteronomy, so we're done with the narrative. We're done actually for a while. For the rest of the story, we're done with the stories. No more narratives, lots of laws. And it's an idealism that's set up from God through Moses to the people. And this is what's said: there shall be no needy among you, since your God, Adonai, will bless you in the land that your God is giving you as a hereditary portion. Remember, they are still, I mean, for the rest of the Torah, on the banks, ready to cross over, ready to occupy the land. They're preparing. If only, so there shall be no needy among you. There won't be, actually, is another way to translate the Hebrew, but it's conditional. If only you heed your God and take care to keep all the instruction is mitzvot, that I enjoin upon you this day. For your God will bless you as promised.
Yes.
You will extend loans to many nations, but you will require none yourself. You will dominate many nations, but they will not dominate you. If, however, there is a needy person among you, one of your kin in any of your settlements in the land that your God is giving you, do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kin. Rather, you must open your hand and lend whatever is sufficient to meet the need. I'm going to stop there. Instant reactions, thoughts, questions. What jumps out? Rebecca and then Panina.
You will dominate many lands, but they will not dominate you. There was something in the Times of Israel today about an AI generated, I'm just going to call it a trope of Israel dominating the world, including the moon.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so it puts you in a place of position, and that's also I'm not surprised that that's what leaps off the page at you, and probably to many of you, because it feels very weird with our modern sensibilities, and yet we could unpack that, what the meaning of that is in a Torah context. It's very different from a modern contemporary context.
There was
Go ahead, Panina. It's your turn.
There was something really happening like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, when the COVID started. There were money given to the citizens in Gaza for them to acquire the shots. And the leaders who got the money ran away with the money, and Israel gave them the shots. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you are going to live with other people, but you have to also pay attention to get along with them, to take care of them, because I gave you this land. So learn from this giving act that you are given this beautiful place. So now learn from that, and you do the same. You have to take care of everything that's around you, whether it's a part of the nature or specifically it says that it directed into other people.
Okay, great.
Not
So,
the trees.
what you're seeing
is
from this
other
is
people. But you have to be kind
that
and
God is modeling for
help the
us.
other people there, because I gave you that. Then my giving was supposed to be an example of giving. So we try, and
Okay.
sometimes it helps, and sometimes
So
they don't want
what you see is we should take our
I'm not going
lead
there
from
anymore.
God.
I'm tired. I'm
Okay,
just
great.
giving you one good example.
No,
that
that's
we
very
gave them
helpful.
the shot.
Yeah, great. John, go ahead.
Hi. I don't I will admit I'm new to the faith. I've only just converted. But
Welcome.
thank you. Hi. But I'm gonna bet that there are several different translations of the verb dominate. And I know that there are certain
dominate.
segments of conservative thought because it says in Genesis that man shall have dominion over nature. I'm misquoting horribly, but people have sort of used that term to say, well, we can do whatever we want with this earth, it's ours, rather than to protect and conserve it.
Exactly.
And so I think it's a very, very complicated verb to throw around. But I like Penina's thought that we God models behavior, we can model behavior, and we're trying to sort of pay that forward. And at some point, there will be impediments in paying it
Exactly.
forward.
Right.
But
And
I
that
would love to hear more about the verb dominate if people have time.
I'm just
That
looking
it
at
has
that.
nothing to do with Ra'o.
I didn't hear you.
I said it has nothing to do with the word Ra'o to dominate. It's not even on the table. Ra'o is learn, look and learn, look and learn. Pay attention to the good stuff. That's why it's the whole idea of getting along with the other people, which follows right away after.
Well, the verb that's used is mashalta. The word is umashalta.
But it may not be not in the same content of what it started.
It doesn't take things.
Memshala means a government. A government supposed to lead, supposed to give you kind of structure, but it doesn't mean necessarily that you should dominate badly. It just tells you that it should be an organization of some kind of not organization, some kind of a guideline that will lead you to get along with the other people. That's about it. There is no domination in the word Ra'o. It's to look.
But
it's
that's
look and learn.
yeah, but that's a different word than what's being used right here.
I'm not talking about the title of the portion. I'm talking about the word used in that one passage.
So, but here's I think let's get to the essence of it, right? The essence is, and I love that you've both referenced really what comes it's going to be here before we know it. We're going to go through the High Holy Days, get to Simchat Torah, and then we're back to the narrative of creation, right? And that's, John, what exactly you brought up, exactly where this comes from, right? We're in the garden and we're put there. And there is this idea of power, but it's responsibility. It is our the Torah is clear. Our job is to till and to tend. There's a lot of responsibility in this, and we can't fulfill the responsibility
also to be an example, like a government.
Yeah, great. So, and we can't do that unless we're really looking at the world around us. And I want to take that idea and focus on that last verse that we looked at. I'll pull the screen share back up because I think that our tradition has a lot of really interesting things to say about how we do that in the context of this particular idea. Verse 8, you must open your hand and lend whatever is sufficient to meet the need. And it's this concept that becomes core to Jewish law or Jewish teachings about giving tzedakah. De machzaro asher yachsar lo. Lend whatever is sufficient to meet the need.
There we go.
Hold on one second. I'm going to skip to, I'm just going to go down to a commentary, it comes from a teaching from the Talmud about this verse, and then we'll stop and talk about it. Our rabbis taught, if an orphan boy has come to marry, we, meaning the community, rent a house for him and prepare a bed and all his household utensils for him. And afterwards, we marry him off to a wife, for it is said, sufficient for his need. And then it digs a little deeper, as the rabbis do, to what each of those steps means. This is a house, right? So housing is a primary need. That which is lacking, this is a bed and a table, a secondary need. And for him, this is a wife. So we're supposed to lend him that which he's lacking and which he needs. So the model is set here that the community is supposed to take care of, in this case, this orphan,
Right.
this orphan on every level, from housing to furnishings. Furnishings seem pretty basic, but they're actually not if you're really in need, and to the emotional as well. And then it picks up on it. Our rabbis taught this term, sufficient for his need. You are commanded to support him, but you are, and this him can be generalized, by the way. This is not just the orphan, but you are not commanded to make him wealthy. They said about the great Hillel the elder that he bought for a certain poor man who came from a respectable family, which means a wealthy family. Hillel the elder bought for this guy who grew up in a wealthy family and was poor a horse to ride upon and a servant to run before him. Once he did not find a servant to run before him, and he himself, the great Hillel, ran before him for 3 miles, leading his horse. So, I want to be able to see everybody. What is the Talmud saying? And then this is then followed up generations later by the great Maimonides, who wrote volumes about this. What's he saying? Merle, go ahead.
I'm thinking of this in several different perspectives. Years ago, we had friends here who were having horrible problems in every way. And we helped them with their mortgage or their rent or whatever at that time. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the community. And I mean, when I donate, well, I usually only donate to our 2 temples and camps and the camps. When I get donation envelopes from our temple here, I really like the fact that it says, and I've never seen this anywhere else, and it's not a criticism of anywhere else, donate to wherever, for us to tell the temple, take this donation and use it for wherever it's necessary. And then when we get the thank you letter, it says where they made the donation to. And I think it's a matter, I have been years ago when I was involved in URJ and regional stuff and everything else, I got a letter from, or somebody called me from Federation, said, well, we know what your husband does for a living, and we feel that you should be able to donate X amount of dollars to Federation. And at that time I said, I give what I can to the 2 temples we belong to and to our camps. And there's no designated amount for what I have to give or what I can give, that whatever I can give is what's important, and they're getting the money, and wherever it goes is wonderful. And if it's in memory of someone, I pick a place for it to go.
Wonderful. And thank you for your generosity and trust,
well.
because what goes into that, what's underlying a lot of what you're saying is also trust, in this case, in institutions, right? You've selected institutions that you trust to support.
Right.
Wonderful. Mona, go ahead.
What came to me was needy, and thank you for hearing about donations, but it's time. And we give of ourselves. And I think that, so many things we can do. I love the larger discussion of someone in need. There's so many different things someone may need. Some which can be provided with money, and yes, necessary, but some which is by giving of ourselves.
Right.
And giving of our time. And I really I just think that's very important to put in the context, because so many people are giving so much of themselves.
Thank you for pointing that out. You're absolutely right. And I have to be, honest to the development of our tradition. When the rabbis, like the Talmud, when they're talking about tzedakah or helping the needy, they are really just talking about material support. However, you are absolutely right in pointing that out, because I think the lessons from it can and ought to be carried over to volunteering and giving of self and skills. as well. Yeah, for sure. Rebecca, go ahead.
I have a book of Jewish ethics, and there's several sections talking about tzedakah, in that you're really only supposed to tithe 10% of what you have, because you yourself don't want to be overextended. And in Hillel's case, in the story that you just, or what you just read us, is that, was he overextending himself for someone who may not have needed all that he had given him, at the expense of ignoring someone else that may have needed his time?
Yeah, okay.
Right. And there's no discussion of that. There's no discussion of that. In fact, not in this piece from the Talmud, with regard to Hillel in particular, but I will tell you that it is kind of a fine and beautiful line that's drawn between being careful not to overextend and also remembering that tzedakah is not charity, right? Charity comes from the word caritas, heart, right? And it is a thing of the heart. Tzedakah is a commandment. It's not nearly as romantic, but and so later on, when the laws are set up for a community, we're taught that, and I almost put this in the sheet and then I didn't, that a community cannot be established unless it has both, I'm trying to think about the English, a collective, a tzedakah collective. So there has to be an opportunity for people to give tzedakah, and there has to be a different mechanism for distributing the tzedakah. That literally, you cannot have a community without that. And the tradition is also very clear, and this goes all the way back to the Torah with the half shekel, that there is nobody, regardless of how little material a person has, I'll put it in the positive, everybody is obligated to give something. So it's that beautiful and very fine line. John, go ahead.
Well, you actually answered one of my questions, which is the direct translation of tzedakah, which I've actually heard translated as, I have learned, when my kids were in preschool, that it can be loosely translated as charity, but also as justice.
That's it.
Exactly.
Which is one of the things that drew me to the faith in the first place, the fact that one word could mean both of those things. But the other thing I was going to say was that you were talking about the evolution of faith and the evolution of the tradition, and there's some beautiful passages just in the prologue of Heschel's book on the Sabbath about taking away from the obsession with thinghood. English was like a tertiary language for the guy, but God, he has fun with it.
It's
And
amazing. There's a little brain in that
but
head.
the obsession with thinghood and a reminder that we are sanctifying time on Friday night.
That's right.
And that is, it's in the other room, but I highlighted the heck out of it. But it sort of speaks to what we're discussing in the way the evolution. Yes, the ancient rabbis were like, they need stuff, they need shekels, they need, bedding. But now, as he headed into the 20th century, he was thinking about the possibilities of what can we do with our time.
Right. Thank you. Yes. I love that what I just read from the Talmud, because it lays out kind of I think about Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? We can't expect human beings to be able to back off if their basic needs aren't met. And yet, so we have an obligation to meet basic needs, but our tradition is saying, wait, hold on a second. What's considered a basic need for one person is not necessarily the same as what's considered a basic need for somebody else. And I've thought about it a lot over the last 6 months, in particular in January and February and March and April, as there were constant conversations, and I'm sure I'm not alone in having had these conversations with people outside of LA who we were following the story of the terrible devastation in the Palisades, in particular in the Palisades, and people saying, but wait a minute, how can you call that need? They've evacuated to their vacation homes or whatever I mean, it's all stereotypical, but there's some, it's not the same. It's a different kind of need, but yet that is 1,000 times over legitimate need. And I think that this teaching that comes from this Torah portion, and remember, we're still in the kind of meta conversation about what we see and what we don't see, teaches us that, among other things, we don't have the ability to, there are certain things we can't see, and we can't see what real need is for somebody else. We can understand our own real need. Basic bottom level of Maslow's hierarchy, notwithstanding. Merle, go ahead.
Oh,
And then
I was just gonna say, and it's pretty much in response to what Mona was saying. For 40 some odd years through URJ, HUC, and probably CCAR, I was teaching and writing about volunteer management. I mean, it all started with an article I posted about being a volunteer. And I think one of the big things that came out of the writings and the classes and everything else was that we don't know why people devote the time that they devote, and they may not. Volunteering is something that helps people who can't do things financially.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're doing whatever it is they can do. And it's very important that to this day, those people get honored and thanked, that tzedakah, the mitzvot, the laws, the whole thing is that we have to honor everyone.
That's right.
Because we don't know why they're doing whatever it is they do or did and whatever.
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you. Brad, go ahead.
Sure.
And Rabbi, I was happy that you brought it back to seeing a minute ago, because the passage begins with seeing the blessings and the curses that are on the table. And I puzzled about that. I mean, how do you see a blessing and how do you see a curse? And what I said to myself is, what it really means is imagine, not see, but imagine. So what we're commanded to do is not just to respond when we walk by that homeless person sprawled out on the street here in Santa Monica, but we're supposed to imagine these things in the comfort of our living rooms. And we're supposed to imagine them throughout the day, not just in response to some exterior stimulus, but to think about these things and imagine them and visualize them and empathize with them as we go through life, not just in response to that one moment during the day when we may see a homeless person lying on the street.
And that, I think, Brad, goes back to your perspective on your bike, right? When you stop and notice, because it's there even when we don't see it, to your point.
But I think I come back to the word imagine rather than a visual stimulus. We're supposed to think about these things without being stimulated externally by them.
I love that.
How do you see a table of blessings and curses? You can't. I mean, but you can imagine them.
And to what everybody said before, think about all of those things that you said that you see when you look out in the world today. They aren't actually visual, most of them, right? But there are ways to perceive them, to imagine them, or like Penina said before, to pay attention. Think about that first verse that I read to you, the first verse of the Torah portion. It's the grammar even is a little strange. See, comma, of course the Torah doesn't have a comma. I set before you blessing and curse. That, to your point, Brad, is not something that you don't physically see that, but we have to keep it in mind. Penina, go ahead.
I think it has to do, it's so involved with the word teacher, more, even though sometimes you put a hey or an aleph and it changes the whole thing. You both. When you see something, the other person that you teach him, it's not enough to give him a fish. You have to teach him how to fish. That's the whole idea. You see, but you also teach. You also be an example. I have a shirt on me, and it says, the first of it, it says, connect, share, elevate, broaden, inspire, inform, engage, educate. Okay? This is all in the same exact word, to see. This is all this. And it's like I said again, you have to teach them. You can't just give them and be an example. Oh, I'm such a good man. Here, I'm giving you this, I'm giving you this. Show him how to do it. Show him how to get there. That's the whole idea. If you just do it and you die, nobody got anything out of it. That's it. That's it.
All right. Great. Mona.
And thank you, Panita. I'm going to add to something. Mom went to Israel, had a wonderful trip sponsored by UJA. Wonderful trip. But at one point, when they asked for money again, she said, does my seat on the bus determine how much I can give? Is my value determined by how big my check I can write, what it is? And I wonder in this world of tzedakah, because she had a wonderful trip, but she felt like she was being asked quite often at different places to contribute.
Yeah.
And my mom, who's a teacher and a little bit of a smart aleck, asked this question to someone. Does my seat on the bus determine?
And did you get an answer?
She got silence and discomfort. And then no.
Okay.
But does the portion and does the Torah value people by their ability or their quantity to give?
Not only
So I'm going to jump in there. Panina, hold on one second. I'm going to jump in because the Torah portion doesn't answer that.
Okay.
Right? The answer is no. But what it is clear about is that everybody with no quantity involved, everybody is obligated to give.
Okay.
Even the poor person is obligated to give. Panina, you want to say something?
It's the ability, it's the main thing of the whole Torah is to teach people how to choose, to be able to be responsible for their own actions. They are not animals. They cannot just go and take or go and do. There is a choice. The reason that the Shabbat was formed is for people to know that they are not machines and they are not slave to anybody else. They have a responsibility for their own actions. Therefore, you work 6 days and you get a Shabbat. It's on purpose to show that you are not a machine. You could choose. You could choose to continue working, or you could choose to take a rest for a day. Depends on your capabilities and the other people that involve around you, what's going on. It's the whole Torah's purpose. Look, but choose. You are not a machine. You're not an animal. You don't kill in order to eat.
And I
dominate.
And I would add to
that, be in charge and responsible for your actions and choices. And when you are doing something good, you are an example. You're not supposed to keep on doing it. You are just did it once as an example. The other person is also a person. Let him choose. Let him go fish for himself if he's next to a river. Not just sit there and wait for the other person to give it to him.
And thank you. That is a great synopsis of much of what we've been talking about. And I also think that this is another reminder in the Torah that we are human. We are not God. And because we're human, this comes back to perspective. Our perspective is limited. No, we're not machines. We're also not God. Right? So we only can see what we can see, and we can imagine. I like that word for this, Brad, but even our imagination is limited by our experience. And so, who are we? It raises this really profound question of who are we to decide what somebody else's need is? I mean, the great Hillel was hired a chauffeur, let's put it in modern terms, a limo with a chauffeur to take somebody around town. I mean, this is the parallel, right? To take somebody around town, somebody who grew up being chauffeured around in a limousine. And we could very, very, very easily look at that and say, that is not need. Sure, transportation might be a need, but there's a bus stop right down the road. And the Talmud is challenging us to say, wait, hold on a second. Who are we to judge somebody else's need? And in fact, we're pushed so much that we actually have to support it. To a limit, we don't have to make them rich, but we have to support them. John and then Merle.
I'm actually going to pass.
Okay.
Carry on.
From what you just said, I think that Torah and Talmud are trying to teach us, if we pay attention, respect of what people's needs might be.
That's good.
Yes.
Or place or objects, places, whatever you're giving to, whatever, however, we have to respect the needs of others.
Right. And I don't want to tip my hand too much, but since the hour is getting late, I'll give you a sense of the way I'm thinking about this and why this all connects to me. How do we do that? We see other people as people. And if we see them as the poor, right, the needy, that's not a human being. And we are being challenged to actually see people, which means getting to know them as human beings. Okay, I want to read a little bit more because there's another verse that's similar, but I think adds a little bit of richness to the discussion, to an already rich discussion. So we've left off at, sorry, I have so many boxes open, I can't see the text. Okay. So you must open your hand and lend whatever is sufficient to meet the need. And then beware lest you harbor the base thought, the 7th year, the year of remission is approaching, so that you are mean and give nothing to your needy kin, who will cry out to God against you, and you will incur guilt. So this is the idea that in the 7th year, there's in parallel, John, to go back to your bringing in the Sabbath, parallel to the 7th day, in the 7th year, there's a release, right? So we're supposed to give whatever they need whenever they need it, because if somebody comes at the end of the 6th year, we could be tempted to say, oh, I'm off the hook because the release is gonna come anyway. So the Torah is saying, beware, don't do that. And it says, give readily and have no regrets when you do so. For in return, your God will bless you in all your efforts and in your undertakings. For there will never see, so just that, let's stick with that verse for a minute. Give readily and have no regrets. God will bless you in all your efforts and in all your undertakings if you do it, right? I want to read, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I want to read to you the commentary from that second author in that book that I mentioned. They were in dialogue about this Torah portion, and he comments on this verse, on verse 10. And this is what he says. Rabbi Dov Linzer, remember, he's an Orthodox rabbi. He says, I see this not as a mandate to be kind. Can everybody see that? It's kind of at the bottom of the screen. Okay. I see this not as a mandate to be kind. I think the mitzvah of tzedakah is not to be nice to people. It's that you have a responsibility to people. Compassion is like extra credit and not a fundamental moral obligation. In other words, if I have a responsibility to someone and I'm not living up to it, I have wronged them. So that's his comment on this, the whole idea, but in particular, this idea about giving readily and having no regrets, because God will bless you in your undertakings. What are your responses to that? Go ahead, Merle.
that we shouldn't be judgmental.
Right.
Whatever the perception is of the need, we should help that institution or person, people.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And also maybe that goes back to my thesis, which is because why shouldn't we judge? Because we have a limited perspective, and who are we to judge? God is the judge.
That's right.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Well, unless I read it wrong, which is more than likely, it would appear that it sort of lets us off the hook regarding compassion, however. Um, and maybe the idea is that charity being a commandment, it doesn't have to come out of the kindness of our heart. We just have to do it, period.
That's right.
Is that the idea?
That is the idea. And that's
That's
a
fast. I mean,
really
as someone
interesting
who is
perspective.
raised in, and by the way, Christianity has corrupted this past all telling of it, and I will be the first to cop to that. No, I won't. I'm one of millions. But it is interesting that we are almost taking emotion out of charity here to a certain extent,
That's right.
and reminding ourselves that no, this is just what we're supposed to do. Rabbi Elkin in the Choosing Judaism class talks about her least favorite mistranslation, which is of mitzvah, which 100% of Gentiles and 85% of Jews think just means a good deed or a solid or a favor.
I'd go up to 90% Jews, but
I lowballed it at my Bayat Din, and they said the same thing. They said the exact same thing at my Bayat Din, but there's still some compassion left over. But that idea that it doesn't matter whether it's a good thing to do or it's a favor or you feel bad, just do it. It is a sacred obligation.
it is a sacred obligation. That's right. And so I love the way you frame that, because does it let us off? Are we let off the hook on the emotion, the compassion end? What do you think?
That's why I asked.
Yeah. So I mean, I could give you my drush on my.
I throw it to Brad.
Yeah, Brad, is that what you were gonna? I was gonna call on you, but I
Well,
wasn't sure if you wanted to wait for us to conclude this before moving on.
you couldn't conclude it. I mean, I have a comment, but
No,
about
comment
this,
away.
do you want me to jump
Yeah,
in or not?
comment about this. Yeah.
I think John has asked a terrific question. I mean, is there a concept of detached generosity in giving, which we think is what a gift is? It's an expression of detached generosity. In other words, that I'm not expecting anything in return. But in fact, if you read Marcel Mauss, M-A-U-S, the philosopher who wrote about giving, he says that when you give, you enter into an exchange relationship with the other party. I give to you, and you feel obligated to reciprocate in some way to me. And this is then the building block of relationships. So this is why so often we see, especially in ancient times, you would arrive with gifts for the other party to subdue any kind of violent type of relationship. Instead,
that I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that shows up in Genesis too.
Yeah.
I think about Jacob and Esau's reunion. Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I think this concept of detached generosity is it's certainly a very important one in philosophy. So, and whether it exists or it doesn't exist. So I think it's a fascinating question.
It's really fascinating. And think about the context. I'm not sure if anybody else noticed in the Torah portion, there is conditionality here. It is a mitzvah. We are supposed to do it, no questions asked. However, there are strings, right? What are the strings? If you do it, guess what? Blessings, 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 blessings. And if you don't, curses, 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 right? That's how it starts. And so it is on the emotional, the Torah, and this is not unusual for the Torah to discount, to not really pay attention to the emotional piece. But there are, so it's not an emotional piece. And I love the way Dov Linzer says it's extra credit, right? The compassion is extra credit because what matters is that we do it. And the reason, and I remember being taught this as a child, is that if we wait for us to feel like it, then there would be no safety net. Doug, go ahead.
I'm reminded of Maimonides' 10 levels of charity, and the highest being that you give to somebody you don't know with a nice gate, you want to, good heart. And the bottom is giving grudgingly and requiring acknowledgement and the whole thing. Now, I think we have a choice. We might be commanded to do this, but if we think about it, we can change our thinking and become a charitable person because you like to help others.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. And you're absolutely right. Maimonides' ladder of tzedakah does a great job of answering that question, right? It's better to do it when you feel good about it, but it's still good to do it when you don't feel good about it. But what you have to do is do it. So thank you for that.
What was the Maimonides text again? I'm sorry.
Maimonides, it's called his ladder of tzedakah. And actually, to go back to Penina, because I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, Penina, because she said it before, the very highest level is to help somebody be able to help themselves. But just shy of that is give it with a good attitude.
We say it, if I'm allowed to say a word, we say it all the time, every day, without really realizing that we're doing it. I heard everybody say, a lot of parents say, make me proud. Make me proud. Why? How does this connect to the father? Make me proud. That's, I taught you something good. So the child knows exactly when you tell him this, make me proud, because he knows what the mission that he's going to do when the father says it to him. And I heard people say it without really understanding the weight that you took on yourself when you taught this to this person and hoping that he's learned something. So you send him off to the world and you say, make me proud. I love this sentence. I'm worried about what it is that they taught him, but that's okay. I mean, I try to think that it's something good.
Well, I think God is saying that to us, right? Make me proud. And there's blessing for that.
Right.
And I come back to this. I love that this is buried. And by the way, most of this Torah portion is about laws of keeping kosher.
Yeah.
That's not the part we looked at today. It's all choice. But I love that this piece is in here. And it's so important because it is about choice and it's about paying attention. And it's about paying attention to what we see. And then the
needs of
others. It's a bit of an oxymoron, right? Pay attention to what you don't see as well. That's our challenge, not an oxymoron. It's our challenge. We are challenged in this Torah portion to pay attention to the things we don't see as well, because there's a lot that goes on behind people's closed doors. There's a lot that goes on inside people's minds and hearts that we don't see. But the more we get to know people, the better off, the more we can see and the more we can respond to. And even though it is a mitzvah, it is clear we're supposed to do it. It's a sacred obligation. Thank you, John. Good education. That is the proper definition, right?
It reflects on Rabbi Elkin, but carry on.
Well done, Rabbi Elkin. It's a sacred obligation. We're not supposed to have a choice, but we all know that when the rubber meets the road, there are plenty of people at plenty of times. All of us, we all fall short sometimes, right? And so it's a challenge. We have this commandment and we're limited. See, we have before us blessing, a choice, blessing and curse. So we go forward and we do our best to choose the blessings, and the blessings come when we really pay attention. Pay attention to even the things that don't seem like, might not seem like actual need to us, to try and see somebody else, at least appreciate somebody else's perspective, even if we just get to the point of, I appreciate that this is your reality and it's not my reality, and you need to have a horse and somebody to pull the horse before you. That's not my reality, but your reality is real. And that's humanizing the other. And that's what we need to see in our world. So with that, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
you,
Shalom,
Rabbi.
Rabbi Lewis.
Shabbat
Thank you.
so much,
Shalom.
Rabbi
Thank
Lewis.
you.
Shabbat Shalom.
That was
Shabbat
great.
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Helen.